So our application is working up to this point, but what if I pass an invalid movie ID here? Let's say 10. We get an exception of type does not exist. That is not good. So the common pattern to handle these situations is to return an HTTP 404 error. 404 is the standard HTTP error that says the page or the resource we're looking for does not exist. So to fix this problem, we need to handle this exception and return an HTTP 404 error. So we wrap this in a try block and then catch the exception. So here we add except. The exception is of type does not exist. And this exception class is part of our model. So movie dot does not exist. Let's have a quick look at this class one more time. So I'm going to go in the models module. Here's our movie class. We derived this from the model class in Django. This model class defines this exception does not exist, and that is why it's inherited in our movie class as well as any other models in our project. So we handle this exception, and here we'll return a 404 error. So on the top, from Django.http module, we need to import HTTP 404 class. Now back to our view function. When we catch this exception, we should raise the HTTP 404 exception. So instead of returning, we're going to raise HTTP 404 because this is an exception class that we need to raise. So save the changes, back in the browser. Let's pass an invalid movie ID here, and we get a page not found with the status code 404. Now back to our view function. Every time we have to get a single object and render it, we'll have to follow this pattern. We have to add this try statement, get the movie, render it, and then catch an exception of type does not exist, and then raise an HTTP 404 exception. In a real application where you have a lot of view functions like this detail view function, this pattern ends up being so repetitive. So that's why we have a shortcut for that in Django. Because as I told you before, Django is focused on productivity. So we can build applications with less code. So on the top, here we have this module, Django.shortcuts. From this module, let's import getObject or 404. This is a function. This function implements this pattern. So we don't have to repeat it in every view function. So now we can simplify this view function like this. We remove try and except statements. Now, instead of getting a single object using the get method, we're going to use the shortcut function that we just imported. So let's delete these. We call get object or 404. We pass the primary key, and this function will automatically raise a 404 exception if this movie doesn't exist. Now, save the changes, back in the browser, refresh. Oops, I missed the first argument. So here, this function should know what kind of model to work with. So earlier we used the movie class, the movie model, but currently when calling this function, we haven't specified this model. So this function doesn't know what model it should query. So as the first argument, we need to pass our model class, that is movie. Okay, now save the changes and refresh this one more time. Now we get a page not found error.